everybody, welcome to a midweek conversation where we talk about this past week's message, some of the follow-up reading or ideas related to it, things that maybe are kind of a sidecar to the vehicle that was the message. So this past Sunday, we jumped back into Psalms, and 2 weeks ago, when I shared about the Dominican Republic, I mentioned one of the things God reminded me of is we can't forget the why. We can't forget the purpose of our mission. We can't forget the purpose of the church, of why we gather and everything. That was a lesson or a reminder from Juan Tomas, and then I really felt like it fit nicely with the sermon series to, in the midst of studying the book of Psalms, pause and remember the why of why we gather, right?
Yeah.
For God's glory, to know God, to worship God.
Yeah.
And so we used the Psalms, and what was really cool is we used nothing outside of the Psalms. We just used all the Psalms, like different Psalms, to remind ourselves of three of the main characteristics of God that we cannot possess. Because I wanted us as a church, it felt like God was leading me to a place of, okay, you can't forget that all of this is about my glory. And I need to be like God, like I need to be at the center of this. Yeah. And so it felt like that was where he kind of brought the sermon series, which wound up working beautifully in the timing of all of it with the lesson from the Dominican. So we looked at God's omniscience, omnipresence, omnipotence, and then the danger of when we try and behave like we are those things. And I think you made a good point where you said, I don't think anybody would admit like, oh, I think I'm omniscient. I think I'm omnipresent. I think I'm
No
all
one
powerful.
will say that.
No one will say that. But when we frame it as, well, we don't say it like that. What we do is we struggle to admit we were wrong. We struggle to ask questions. Fake it till you make it, right? Yeah. I can't admit that I don't know the answer to something, so I'll just pretend like I do. I'll overextend myself and overexert myself, signing up for 20 different things and being on 20 different boards because I can be that source of help that everyone needs in every location. And so I think sometimes we do fall into a trap of pretending like we are those things, which is really disastrous in its consequences.
Because that's us trying to be God. And I'm sorry, but we're not going to fit into that paradigm. It's just not going to work. And so that's one of the things that I was going to really just mention about the message, because I didn't really get, I maybe got 20 minutes of it because I was out feeding Apollos. And I know we lost audio for a little bit. So I was out, I was watching you, but I wasn't hearing what you were saying until the audio came back on. I was hearing, but I did catch the end, where you mentioned, how in our life do we attempt to be these things? And I just love the way you kind of presented it, because again, we're not going to outright say, I try to be omnipresent all the time. But the way you worded it was, do you try to help in every single circumstance, every single person, every single thing? And to me, that's me. I'm like, I would go and just say yes to a bunch of stuff and think that I could do it all. Yeah. And then you get burnt out, and that's how burnout happens, right?
Burnout happens.
So I thought that was a great way. Obviously, centering on God's glory, and of course, recognizing, the fact that we can't be these things and only God is able to be all of these things should be reason alone for us to glorify Him. Yeah. I mean, I think, I could go on rails and rails and rails about that.
Well, but I think what you're getting at, only God can be these things, and so only He is due the glory from being these things. Yeah. And that was why I picked Psalm 29, which is literally titled, Ascribe to the Lord Glory. You know what I mean? And I think that is a big component of it, is when we try and step into the roles that only God can fill, it makes it harder to praise Him for being those things, because it's like, well, I can be that, you know what I mean? And that might not be what we would say we're doing, but I think that's one of the ripple effects of when we try and assume the roles and responsibilities of God that only He is capable of fulfilling. I think it diminishes our inclination to worship Him. You know what I mean? Because there's not this profound sense of His otherness, like His perfect worthiness, because he is the only one who is those things.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the ripple effects of it is, not only are there disastrous consequences in our own lives, but also in our relationships and in our viewing and understanding of God and our understanding of he alone is due glory. And when we try and place ourselves in the same capacity that he is, that I think I've frequently seen leads to a lessening of that inclination to worship.
That's good. Yeah. Yeah, I think, I'm not quite sure where you want to take the conversation, but
go wherever, man.
Because I think it can be tempting to hear, hey, you sometimes try to be omniscient or omnipresent. And we may feel that conviction, may think like, oh no, like, I'm living it all wrong, like I'm doing it wrong or whatever. But I think that, like how you're saying, it leads us to worship him as God is, because there's no one else like him. He is 100% set apart as the only person that is capable of doing these things. Like when we recognize just like our shortcomings. And I think it elevates our recognition of God's grandness, his beauty, and the fact that he invites us into relationship with himself.
Yeah, exactly. This shouldn't be about creating that guilty, like, oh man, I'm the worst person ever. You know what I mean? Like, it should be more of like wow, I'm not designed to be these things.
Exactly. That's a great way of putting it.
Like, I'm not designed to be these things. It's almost freeing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to feel the weight of, like, and I don't, as pastor for this church, I feel a responsibility for this church. Like, I do. I feel a tremendous burden. I feel the weight of the mantle of leadership. And I think we should, right? Like, when we were interviewing you and talking to you, like, and you talked about the responsibility of being in a ministry position. And I liked hearing you say that, because I was like, okay, if this is who God is calling here and we wind up hiring him, we want to hire someone who recognizes the weight of responsibility of leadership. So I'm not talking about that. What I'm talking about is I don't feel this crushing weight of I have to know every person in our church perfectly and be the solution to their problems.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, if I woke up every day thinking I had to be the source of a solution to everyone's problem, I wouldn't get out of bed. Like, that would be so impossibly intimidating.
Oh, yeah.
So I think there's a lot of freedom in recognizing, okay, I'm not designed to be omniscient, omnipresent, or omnipotent. Like, oh, God is.
Yeah.
God is those things. I'm not meant to be. So that gives me more freedom to live as who he calls me to be instead of trying to be something I'm not. And it reminds me of my desperate dependence upon him and need for him. You know what I mean? Like, I don't need Violet to provide groceries at home. I in our household, if like you just went straight pragmatic, right? Like a move all, like if we just pretended we were Spock, no emotion, right? Like just logic. Violet does not produce anything in our household. She's not cleaning, she's not cooking, she's not working, she's not working in the yard, she's not taking care of Adeline and I. Like, so there's a lot of joy in that when we recognize, okay, God is not reliant upon me. Like, it's not like God's mission hinges on, well, if Sam is not omnipotent, then the mission of the church won't advance.
Yeah.
It's like you said, no, he invites us in. And so then it's like, wow, I have a holy calling. I have a holy privilege. I have a holy joy and responsibility. There's definitely responsibility.
Oh, yeah.
But it's not a crippling weight to it. And so I think even remembering these things keeps us in that proper perspective of dependence upon God, reliance upon the Holy Spirit, but then also being able to enjoy, like, not being God and allowing him to be the one who provides and the one who knows and the one who takes care. And just enjoying being his child.
Yeah, because you think about the Violet example, she's just living it. She's just loving it. Like, there's no way she's not worried about it. She doesn't have to worry. You know what I mean? Like,
she just gets to live life enjoying being loved by us.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'm meant to live life enjoying being loved by God, enjoying being provided for by God, being known by God, taking my needs to him, my requests to him. Like, that's how it's designed to be. And so it's not this restrictive, mean thing that God's doing to us. It's this incredibly gracious, freeing thing that God is doing.
He's quite literally liberating us from burdens that we put on ourselves. That's good. So question, which one of these do you tend to be more tempted towards?
Omniscience.
Really?
Because I like knowledge. Like I do. One of the reasons I like reading is because I like knowing things. You know what I mean? Like I like knowing random trivia. I like knowing cultural behind the scenes stuff. You know what I mean? Like I like knowing stuff. And so I really don't like saying the phrase, I don't know. Like, how do you do this? I don't know. Like, what is the answer to this? I don't know. Like, I don't like saying, I don't know. And really, at the end of the day, that's just a pride thing. Like, if I'm being honest, that's just straight up hubris. You know what I mean? Like, that's just this arrogant part of me that I have to constantly, day in and day out, crucify. Right? Because my flesh, my arrogant, egotistical, prideful flesh, doesn't like not knowing stuff. And that's not good. That's not healthy. Like, that's just straight up ego. And so I have to, of those three, the part that I most regularly am like, Lord, crucify this. Like, remind me that this part of my flesh has been nailed to the cross and is dead and buried, is the temptation towards omniscience.
That's good. I mean, it's not good, but it's good that you
have the
recognize
awareness.
it. Yeah, I think for me, the omnipresence, because I can justify it by, it's ministry work. Or it's good for our family to be involved in this. Or it's good because it's something God has called us to. And I could literally run us into the ground. And justify our whole way there. And then not even recognize that it's been really bad until we're actually there.
Until you're actually like crashed and burned.
Until we're like, what are we doing? What happened? It's like, I said yes to everything and we didn't even have a time to even think about it, right? So I think omnipresence is like a big one for me. And I think a part of, you mentioned pride being kind of the root of that one. I think for that one is like the idea of liking being needed. And I think that's a form of pride too. I mean, almost like a Messiah complex thing. Where it's like, they need me, so I need to step in order to fix this.
It's that little boost of I'm important.
Exactly.
They need me. They need me. Like if I'm not there, it won't get done. You know what I mean?
And so to crucify that and be like, they don't need me. They need Jesus. So.
And the danger comes when we try and set up systems where we are needed. You know what I mean? Like, for example, if we would have set this church up so that like it's all about me, and then my flight gets stuck in Miami, okay, we got to cancel church because Sam's not here, right? Like, I think it's so fantastically wonderful that like it was like elders and staff. You got it. You know what I mean? Like, that's a very good reminder that Sam cannot be omnipresent. And so it cannot be about Sam. Like, can't be about Sam because he's very clearly a finite, trapped human.
You're trapped. You can't do nothing about it.
And so I think reminders like that are even little gifts from God to remind us, like, hey, your leadership is incapable of being omnipresent. Like, so it better not be about your leadership.
That's good.
Like, I think even stuff like that is a good
And I really do think, a lot of the American church needs that reminder. We need that reminder of like, you can't put it on any one person, any one ministry. Actually, you can put it on one person, Jesus. so I don't know if you have anything else, but
no, I mean, we've kind of touched on a lot of different things, but I really think at the end of the day, it does just come down to that proper heart of worship, right? And as long as I'm very cognizant of the fact that I am not these things, that's a removal of obstacles to proper worship, right? Psalm 29:2, ascribe to the Lord the glory due his name.
Yeah.
Like, that's it.
He's the only one who gets glory.
The only one who gets glory is the only one who's worthy. And that's how it's designed to be. And we have to keep in mind that everything that God has designed is for his glory and his holiness and the magnification of Jesus and for our best. And so our greatest thriving will come when we live as God intended. And that is with an awareness that I'm not omniscient, I'm not omnipresent, I'm not omnipotent.
Yeah.
And so I can't try to be or pretend to be.
And God doesn't call us to be those
And
things.
God doesn't call us to be.
Yeah. So I think that's a good thing to end on.
Yep.
So yeah.
If you have any questions, any comments, any thoughts, we'd love to hear from you. Always enjoy the interaction. But otherwise, we will see you Sunday.
See you then.
Hey everyone, Pastor Sam here. Thanks for joining us for another midweek Bible study video. If you didn't see the sermon that we were talking about, you can find it here. Or if you're interested in more of these midweek Bible study videos and thoughts as Pastor Mario and I break things down, you can find that here as well. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel to stay up to date on all our content. Thanks for joining us.